Three ways a narcissist will misuse boundaries. I'm the shepherd of black sheep, the wizard of radical self-respect, Jared Mello. Let's jump right in. The first way a narcissist will misuse boundaries is they try to make their boundaries other people's boundaries. And narcissists, they try to use other people to regulate their emotions. And this comes off as them trying to fix, manage, and control other people. The right way to have boundaries is to place a boundary and then give other people the freedom to decide for themselves whether they want to respect that boundary or not. You have a boundary, but then a clear consequence. Then it's on them. Then it's up to the person who has the boundary to either enforce the consequence or walk away. But narcissists don't like that side of it. They would rather try to control the other person and force them to respect the boundary instead of giving them a choice. And often they will even take this too far. A good example of this would be, say there's a narcissist who wants to stay clean, and they don't want to spend time with people who drink or do drugs. Totally understandable. But the way they would do it is, instead of giving the other person the freedom to decide, they will try to force the other person to adhere, to make the narcissist feel better. And then they will probably even go too far and say, I don't want my partner even going to any bars. And the problem with this is, they are not giving their partner the freedom to decide. It's up to the narcissist in this case, if it's truly a boundary. If someone's not going to respect the boundary, then you either have to enforce the consequence or walk away. But that's not what they do. They will belittle, shame, and try to force the other person to respect that boundary. And on the flip side, if someone does respect someone else and they know, okay, my partner's trying to stay clean, they don't want to be with someone who drinks or does drugs, understandable. And if you respect and care about your partner, maybe you would be more likely to respect that boundary. But often, even that's not good enough for a narcissist. Like I said, they will try to control you in other ways as well and say, I don't want you around other people that drink. I don't want you going to bars. And that's where it goes too far, when they are trying to control the other person and make their boundaries the other person's boundaries as well. The second way a narcissist will misuse boundaries is they will change their boundaries out of nowhere and not tell anybody, and then expect other people to be able to read their minds. This happens because narcissists will base their boundaries on their feelings and not a value system or their personal constitution. Nick Pollard, the people displeaser, and we talked about this in our interview the other day. But we should base our boundaries on our values, not our feelings, because our feelings can change. Our feelings can be fickle. And narcissists, they like to use other people to regulate their emotions and their feelings. And a good example of this happening would be a narcissist tells their romantic partner it's totally okay to have friends of the opposite sex. Then fast forward a few months, and all of a sudden, they will become furious if you have friends of the opposite sex. And if you say something about it, they will say, I was never okay with you having friends of the opposite sex. What's happened here is the narcissist has probably gotten jealous, and so their feelings have changed, and now their boundaries have changed, and they're going to say, now it's not okay for you to have friends of the opposite sex. And they want to control you to alleviate that feeling of jealousy within them. But that is not your responsibility at that point to alleviate their jealousy. At that point, if that's your boundary, and you might say that's a silly boundary, but either way, if someone's boundary is no friends of the opposite sex, it's their responsibility to do something about it. It's their responsibility to act accordingly if other people aren't going to adhere to them. And in the case of when they change them like that, that's already not a good sign, because at this point, that's an adversarial relationship at that point. It is very difficult to have a healthy relationship with somebody that is going to change their boundaries like that out of nowhere. It is a big red flag because if they're going to change their boundaries on one issue, who knows what other issues they may change their boundaries on. Certainly not a good sign. And of course, if it's a narcissist, we already know it's not a good sign anyway. It's a situation where you should be getting out of there and going no contact if possible. The third way a narcissist may misuse boundaries is they want other people to respect their boundaries, but then they will not respect other people's boundaries. These are what we would consider double standards and rules for thee, but not for me. A great example of this is the narcissist expecting their partner to be monogamous, but then the narcissist will not be monogamous themselves, and they'll get with anyone they possibly can. It's an example of rules for thee, but not for me, and a classic double standard. And this goes for any of us, though. If we have boundaries, and we want other people to respect them, we have to then respect the boundaries of other people. Because if we don't, now we are a hypocrite. And if we care about somebody in this case, we should want to respect their boundaries. And if we really do think someone's boundaries are silly or ridiculous, at that point, it might be more of a compatibility issue at that point. It doesn't mean their boundaries are wrong, etc. It might just mean you are not compatible with that person. And you really have to weigh and take into consideration what boundaries would you be willing to respect, even if you think they're ridiculous. It's an important question to ask, and there is no right or wrong answer to it. It would really all depend. But I think a big part of it is, how do they enforce their boundaries? Are they going to try to force other people to adhere? Or are they going to give you the freedom to decide for yourself? If they give you the freedom, at least that's a good sign. But if they try to control you about it, regardless of what the boundary is, that is not a good sign. And that's how people misuse boundaries. And to go over the 3 ways a narcissist may misuse boundaries: 1, they try to make their boundaries other people's boundaries, and they put the responsibility on other people instead of the responsibility on themselves to enforce the boundaries. They expect other people to be controlled so that the narcissist does not have to act accordingly and leave a situation if necessary. The second way they may misuse a boundary is by changing their boundaries out of nowhere and expecting other people to read their minds. And this happens because they will base their boundaries on their feelings and not their value system. And the third way a narcissist may misuse boundaries is they want people to respect their boundaries, but then they refuse to respect the boundaries of others. It's a double standard and rules for thee, but not for me. If you got this far, please remember to like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't here already, check out some of my interviews. There's a bunch of them up there with H.G. Tudor, The Nameless Narcissist, Michelle Secret One, Chelsea Brooke Cole, many more. And comment below what you thought about this video here. I would love to hear your thoughts. Share this video with other people that you think might benefit from hearing it. With that, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.